Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Back with my in-studio guest, Stephen Tenorio Jr., not only an oil painter, but novelist as well as an attorney, and also a judge advocate for the U.S. Army Reserve. His latest novel, of course, Ocean in a Cup. It's not the easiest read.
No, yeah,
it's not the easiest read.
Yeah.
But the inspiration behind this, and tell us, because, again, here we say you're combining some factual times in Guam with your spin of fictionalization.
Right. Well, first off, let me put it in its category. The first week or two I put it out, right? Mm-hmm. I sent these out to my peers, my friends, and they were like, wow, this book is dense and it's tough to get through and all this other stuff. And I was just I took a step back and said, oh, well, did I do the right thing? 2 weeks later, professors, people from off island, English teachers started emailing me. And what I discovered was this is somewhere along the lines of the genre of what they call literary fiction or interpretive fiction.
Sure, okay.
So that's James Joyce, William Faulkner,
Sure.
Virginia Woolf. Now, if you read any of their books, they're going to say the same thing. Wow, man, this is kind of really hard to get through.
Sure.
Because the book is, when you go through it, it's about interpretation.
Sure.
There's, every paragraph or line in this style of writing, it's symbolic. The images are supposed to be representative of things in the present sense as you know it. I talk about the ocean, the running, the problems they're going through, but really what's the layer behind that?
Sure.
What is the story you're trying to get across? So just like when you read the Bible or you read any interpretive fiction, there's one or two interpretations that follow a paragraph.
Sure.
So that's the difficulty you have. So some people would spend almost a page reading it, and they'll read it again and read it again. So they're getting everything on a cursory level, but their subconscious in their mind is saying, it's saying something else. And that's the hard part. And that's what interpretive fiction is about. Yeah, so that's where the toughness comes from.
Absolutely that. And then, because we talked about this when when it first came out. Actually, you wrote this book, but you published it last year.
Right.
You were
the hesitation.
Yeah. No, and I know some of the resistance that you got from fellow writers and things like that. I mean, it kind of reminded me of something that maybe we undergo here as well, as at times sometimes we're our worst enemy in the crab mentality in a sense. I think you have a painting of that, but we'll talk about that. That's for another show.
Right.
But anyway, there's some of the resistance you got because, again, as you're talking about interpretive literature, and this is my interpretation, okay, and how they're approaching you in a sense. You're wrong in your interpretation. Well, wait a minute. If I'm interpreting it, now maybe in your eyes you have a different interpretation, but who am I to say that your interpretation is wrong? This is my interpretation, and yes, some of it is based in fiction, and I interpret this. Now it could be, I may glamorize it in a sense in fiction and things and all that, but this is again in interpretation. Are you still getting flack? I mean, because I think you know
what? I'll tell you a very short story that's going to tie into everything you do in your radio talk show and what you might hear from everyone else and everything you just talked about. It just goes down to our belief. Everywhere in the world, I mean, I'm not an anthropologist, but I'm pretty sure historically people can pinpoint different belief systems in different communities throughout the world. So we have a really strong belief system, and when we believe something, it's really hard to let go of that belief.
If we ever let go.
Right, if we ever let go of that belief. So perfect story. So in the beginning of my book, spoiler, right, guy runs across a snake. We know there was no brown tree snakes until after World War II.
Sure.
So actually, Judy Flores had read the book before I published it, and she says, Steve, you mentioned this and that. Now, the snake has been it's been symbolic in literature for a long time. Adam and Eve, right?
Sure.
There's a serpent. All this old Indian Vinchu writing. There's snakes. Old mythology. There's snakes.
GPA has it every once in a while. Whenever they can't find another excuse, they pull out the brown tree snake.
So it's symbolic, right? In the literary community, the snake is very symbolic. So I use that right as a strong symbolism in my writing. Now in the book, no one ever sees the snake, right? In fact, the protagonist goes around saying, did you see the snake? And people are like, what is that? I don't know what it is. So it's pretty clear in the book that the only person that sees the snake is the protagonist who has issues, who's haunted by reality. So we don't know if it's symbolic or if it's a figment of his imagination. Now, mind you, I've met some really good people who have read this book, very educated. And after they read the book, we would talk and they'll be like, you know there was no brown tree snakes. And I said, yeah, but you know that it was, that they're like, yeah, I know that, but you know there's no brown tree snakes. So, you know, that's their belief. You know, there's a strong belief system. You just can't break it.
Now, I think, again, you know, yes, it's a harder read, and you may have to read it over to understand it, and then to have your interpretation or what the author is trying to say. I think it's a must read for at least college level, students and things like that. And I hope, if not already, I hope it's incorporated in some classes as a must read, because here we have, again, as we're pushing, you know, this weekend we're going. It's GVB and GHA is Shop Guam, Taste Guam. Well, read Guam, and let's get the totality in what Guam is about. We got our writers, we got our painters, and so let's use them, you know, in regards to our curriculum as much as we can, you know, and maybe we can't use this in the lower grade levels, but it's got its place, at least in a higher division, upper division classes. But anyway, we'll take a break, pay some bills right now, and tell the folks where they can get a copy of Ocean in a Cup, as well as how they can view your drawings, your paintings.
All right, thank you.
Be right back.